Hey everybody, it's time for another edition of Harry Potter. We are on chapter 6, where we left off yesterday. He is pulling away from the station, platform 9 3/4 at Hogwarts, in the Hogwarts Express. He was watching the family, the mom and the little girl, wave goodbye to everybody. And that's where we are. The door of the compartment slid open and the youngest red-headed boy came in. "Anyone sitting there?" he asked, pointed to the seat opposite Harry. "Everywhere else is full." Harry shook his head and the boy sat down. He glanced at Harry and then looked quickly out of the window, pretending he hadn't looked. Harry saw he still had a black mark on his nose. "Hey, Ron." The twins were back. "Listen, we're going to go to the middle of the train. Lee Jordan's got a giant tarantula down there." "Right," mumbled Ron. "Harry," said the other twin, "did we introduce ourselves?" "Fred and George Weasley. And this is Ron, our brother. See you later. Bye." "Bye," said Harry and Ron, and the twins slid the compartment door shut behind them. "Are you really Harry Potter?" Ron blurted out. Harry nodded. "Oh, well, I just thought it might be one of Fred and George's jokes," said Ron. "And have you really got, He pointed at Harry's forehead. Harry pulled back his bangs to show the lightning scar, and Ron stared. "So that's where you know who?" "Yes," said Harry, "but I don't remember it. Hold on, I'm going to do something here. Maybe this glare won't be quite so bad on my glasses. A little bit better. Computer. Okay. You don't remember nothing?" said Ron eagerly. "Well, I remember a lot of green light, but nothing else." "Wow," said Ron. He sat and stared at Harry for a few moments. Then, as suddenly as he said... Restart that sentence. He sat and stared at Harry for a few moments. Then, as though he had suddenly realized what he was doing, he looked quickly out of the window again. "Are all of your family wizards?" Harry asked, who found Ron just as interesting as Ron found him. "Yes, I think so," said Ron. "I mean, Mom's got a second cousin who's an accountant, but we never really talk about him." "So you must know loads of magic already." The Weasleys were clearly one of those old wizarding families the pale boy in Diagon Alley had talked about. "I heard you went to live with Muggles," said Ron. "What are they like?" "Horrible." "Well, not all of them. My aunt and uncle and cousin are, though. I wish I had 3 wizard brothers." "5, said Ron. For some reason, he was looking gloomy. "I'm the 6th in our family to go to Hogwarts. You could say I've got a lot to live up to. Bill and Charlie have already left. Bill was head boy, and Charlie was the captain of the Quidditch team. Now Percy is a prefect. Fred and George mess around a lot, but they still get really good marks, and everyone thinks they're really funny. Everyone expects me to do as well as the others, but if I do, it's not a big deal, because they did it first. You never get anything new either. With 5 brothers, I've got Bill's old robes, Charlie's old wand, and Percy's old rat." Ron reached inside his jacket and pulled out a fat gray rat which was asleep. "His name's Scabbers, and he's useless. He hardly ever wakes up. Percy got an owl from my dad after being made a prefect, but they couldn't I got Scabbers instead." Ron's ears went pink. He seemed to think he'd said too much, because he went back to staring out of the window. Harry didn't think there was anything wrong with not being able to afford an owl. After all, he'd never had any money in his entire life until a month ago. And he told Ron so. All about having to wear Dudley's old clothes and never getting proper birthday presents. This seemed to cheer Ron up a bit. "And until Hagrid got me, I didn't know anything about being a wizard or my parents or Voldemort." Ron gasped. "What?" "What?" said Harry. "You said, 'You know whose name,'" said Ron, sounding both shocked and impressed. "I'd have thought you, of all people." I'm not trying to be brave or anything, saying the name," said Harry. "I just never knew you shouldn't. See what I mean? I've got loads to learn." "I bet," he added, voicing for the first time something that had been worrying him a lot lately. "I bet I'm going to be the worst in the class." "You won't be. There's loads of people who come from Muggle families, and they all learn quick enough." While they'd been talking, the train had carried them out of London. They were now speeding past full fields of cows and sheep. They were quiet for a long time, watching the fields and lanes flick past. Around 12:30, there was a great clattering outside in the corridor, and a smiling, dimpled woman slid back their door and said, "Anything off the carts, dear?" Harry, who hadn't had any breakfast, leapt to his feet, but Ron's ears went pink again, and he muttered that he'd brought sandwiches. Harry went out into the corridor. He'd never had money for candy with the Dursleys, and now that he had pockets rattling with gold and silver, he was ready to buy as many Mars bars as he could carry. But the woman didn't have any Mars bars. What she did have were Bertie Bott's Every Flavored Beans, Drooble's Best Blowing Gum, chocolate frogs, pumpkin pasties, cauldron cakes, licorice wands, and a number of strange things that Harry had never seen in his life. Not wanting to miss anything, he got some of everything and paid the woman 11 silver sickles and 7 bronze nuts. Ron stared as Harry brought it all back into the compartment and tipped it onto an empty seat. "Hungry, are you?" "Starving," said Harry, and took a large bite out of a pumpkin pasty. Ron had taken out a lumpy package and unwrapped it. There were 4 sandwiches inside. He pulled one of them apart and said, "She always forgets I don't like corned beef." "Swap you for one of these," said Harry, holding up a pasty. "Go on." "You don't want this. It's really dry," said Ron. "She hasn't got a lot of time," he added quickly, with the 5 of us. "Go on, have a pasty," said Harry, who'd never had anything to share before, or indeed anyone to share it with. It was a nice feeling sitting there with Ron, eating their way through all of Harry's pasties, cakes, and candies. The sandwiches lay forgotten. "What are these?" Harry asked Ron, holding up a pack of chocolate frogs. "They're not really frogs, are they?" He was starting to feel that nothing would surprise him anymore. "No," said Ron. "But see what the card is. I'm missing Agrippa." "What?" "Oh, of course you wouldn't know. Chocolate frogs have cards inside of them, to collect famous witches and wizards. I've got about 500 that I haven't got Agrippa or Ptolemy." Harry unwrapped his chocolate frog and picked up the card. It showed a man's face. He wore half-moon glasses, a long, crooked nose, had flowing silver hair, a beard, and mustache. Underneath the picture was the name Albus Dumbledore. "So this is Dumbledore," said Harry. "Don't tell me you've never heard of Dumbledore," said Ron. "Can I have a frog? I might get Agrippa." "Thanks." Harry turned it over and read, "Albus Dumbledore, currently headmaster of Hogwarts. Considered by many the greatest wizard of modern times. Dumbledore is particularly famous for his defeat of the dark wizard Grindelwald in 1945, for the discovery of the 12 uses of dragon's blood, and his work on alchemy with his partner Nicholas Flamel. Professor Dumbledore enjoys chamber music and tin-pin bowling." Harry turned the card back over and saw to his astonishment that Dumbledore's face had disappeared. "He's gone." "Well, you can't expect him to hang around all day," said Ron. "He'll be back." "No, I've got Morgana again. I've got about 6 of her. Do you want it? You can start collecting." Ron's eyes strayed to the pile of chocolate frogs waiting to be unwrapped. "Help yourself," said Harry, "but in, the Muggle world, people just stay put in photos." "Do they? What, they don't move at all?" Ron sounded amazed. "Weird." Harry stared as Dumbledore sidled back into the picture on his card and gave him a small smile. Ron was more interested in eating the frogs than looking at the famous witches and wizards cards, but Harry couldn't keep his eyes off of them. Soon he not only had Dumbledore and Morgana, but Hengist of Woodcroft, Alberic Grunion, Cersei, I can't say this one, Parcelaus, maybe, and Merlin. He finally tore his eyes away from the Druidess. Starts with a C. I don't know. The Druidess C. Who was scratching her nose to open up a bag of Bertie Bott's Every Flavored Beans. "You'll want to be careful with those," Ron warned Harry. "When they say every flavor, they mean every flavor. You get all the ordinary ones like chocolate, peppermint, and marmalade, but you might get spinach or liver or tripe. George reckons he got a booger-flavored one once." Ron picked up a green bean, looked at it carefully, and bit into a corner. "Bleh, see, Brussels sprouts." just like bamboozled, bean boozled. I can't say it right either, but that's what it's like. Those are every flavored beans. Now my nose itches. They had a good time eating the every flavored beans. Harry got toast, coconut, baked bean, strawberry, curry, grass, coffee, sardine, and was even brave enough to nibble the end off of a funny gray one that Ron wouldn't touch. Turned out to be pepper. The countryside was now flying past the window and was becoming wilder. The neat fields had gone, and now there were woods, twisting rivers, and dark green hills. There was a knock on the door of their compartment, and the round-faced boy Harry had passed on platform 9 3/4 came in. He looked tearful. "Sorry," he said, "but have you seen a toad at all?" They shook their heads. He wailed, "I've lost him. He keeps getting away from me." "He'll turn up," said Harry. "Yes," said the boy miserably. "Well, if you see him," and he left. "Don't know why he's so bothered," said Ron. "If I brought a toad, I'd lose it as quickly as I could. Mind you, I brought Scabbers, so I can't talk." The rat was still snoozing in Ron's lap. "He might have died and you wouldn't know the difference," said Ron in disgust. "I tried to turn him yellow yesterday to make him more interesting, but the spell didn't work. I'll show you, look." He rummaged around in his trunk and pulled out a very battered-looking wand. It was chipped in places and something white was glinting at the end. Unicorn hairs nearly poking out. Anyway, he raised his wand when the compartment door slid open again. The toadless boy was back, but this time he had a girl with him. She was already wearing her new Hogwarts robes. "Has anyone seen a toad? Neville's lost one," she said. She had a bossy sort of voice with loads of bushy brown hair, like mine, and large front teeth. I got those too. "We've already told him we haven't seen it," said Ron, but the girl wasn't listening. She was looking at the wand in his hand. "Oh, so you're doing magic? Let's see it then." She sat down, and Ron looked taken aback. All right." He cleared his throat. "Sunshine, daisies, butter, mellow, turn this stupid fat rat yellow." He waved his wand, but nothing happened. Scabbers stayed gray and still asleep. "Are you sure that's a real spell?" said the girl. "Well, it's not very good, is it? I've tried a few simple spells just for practice, and it's all worked for me. Nobody in my family's magic at all, and it was ever such a surprise when I got my letter. But I was ever so pleased, of course. I mean, it's the very best school of witchcraft and wizardry that there is, so I've heard. I've learned our course books by heart, of course. I just hope it will be enough. I'm Hermione Granger, by the way. Who are you?" She said all of this very fast. Harry looked at Ron, who was relieved to see by his stunned face that he hadn't learned all of his course books by heart either. "I'm Ron Weasley," Ron muttered. "Harry Potter," said Harry. "Are you really?" said Hermione. "I know all about you. Of course, I got a few extra books for background reading, and you're in Modern Magical History and the Rise and Fall of the Dark Ages and Great Wizarding Events of the 20th Century. "Am I?" Harry felt dazed. "Goodness, didn't you know? I'd have found out everything if it was me, of course," said Hermione. "Do either of you know what house you'll be in? I've been asking around. I hope I'm in Gryffindor. It sounds by far the best. I've heard Dumbledore himself was in it, but I suppose that Ravenclaw wouldn't be too bad. Anyway, better go look for Neville's toad. You two had better change, you know. I expect we'll be there soon." And she left, taking the toadless boy with her. "Whatever house she's in, I hope... I said it backwards. Whatever house I'm in, I hope she's not in it," said Ron. He threw his wand back into his trunk. "Stupid spell. George gave it to me. I bet he knew it was a dud." "What houses are your brothers in?" "Gryffindor," said Ron. Gloom seemed to be settling on him again. "Mom and Dad were in it too. I don't know what they'll say if I'm not. I don't suppose Ravenclaw would be too bad, but imagine if they put me in Slytherin." "That's the house full... you know who was in?" "Yeah," said Ron. He flopped back onto his seat, looking depressed. I think the ends of Scabbers' whiskers are a bit lighter," said Harry, trying to take Ron's mind off of the houses. "So what do your older brothers do now that they've left anyway?" Harry was wondering what a wizard did once they'd finished school. "Well, Charlie's in Romania studying dragons. Bill's in Africa doing something for Gringotts," said Ron. "Did you hear about Gringotts? It's been all over the Daily Prophet. But I don't suppose you'd get that with the Muggles. Someone tried to rob a high-security vault." Harry stared. "Really? What happened to them?" "Nothing. That's why it's such big news. They haven't been caught. My dad says it must have been a very powerful wizard, dark wizard, to get around Gringotts. But they don't think they took anything. That's what's odd, because Of course, everyone gets scared when something like happens in case you know who's behind it. Harry turned this news over in his mind. He was starting to get a prickle of fear every time you know who was mentioned. He supposed this was all part of entering the magic world, but it had been a lot more comfortable just saying Voldemort without worrying. What's your Quidditch team? Ron asked. I don't know any. Harry confessed. What? Ron looked dumbfounded. Oh, you wait. It's the best game in the world. And he was off explaining all about the 4 balls and the positions of the 7 players, describing famous games he'd been to with his brothers and the broomstick he'd like to buy if he had the money. He was just taking Harry through the finer points of the game when the compartment door slid open yet again. But this time, it wasn't Neville the Toadless Boy or Hermione Granger. And that is where we're going to stop for the day. So who do you think is going to come in? I don't know. But he's met 3 new friends, really. Ron. It's going to be a really good friend, I think. Hermione. They didn't really have the best first meeting, but I can tell a lot about her character by the way that she acted. And Neville. I can tell a lot about the 3 of them. I can tell that Ron, he's the youngest of a bunch of kids. He doesn't have a very wealthy family, and he's kind of bummed out that no matter what he does, he's not going to be better than his brothers. And then Hermione seems like kind of bossy know-it-all that's really, really smart and likes to tell everybody what to do. We all know somebody like that. And then Neville, who seemed kind of lost. But, whatever. So someone else is going to come in. It's someone that we've met before. So I want you to think about that, make a prediction, and we will finish. We won't finish the chapter. It's going to take 4 days. But we'll get some more of it read tomorrow. Bye.